Hello. Hi, everyone, again.
Hi, Vasil.
Hi, Nicola.
How was your session?
Session was good, hopefully, also for the visitors of the session. Thank you. Now we have, I think, a very interesting topic, given your background. People cannot see you sitting there, but they don't realize how big you are actually. So Nicola is more than 2 meters, actually a huge guy with lots of experience in the volleyball field. And due to his experience also in the lean field, we thought that the topic of how lean can be implemented in sports might be something that you'll be very interested in. So, Nicola, passing back to you.
Thank you, Vasil. So yes, I am, as you might have read in the opening descriptions, a lean consultant and also an undercover lean volleyball coach in my spare time. So we decided that it would be interesting to try to share some knowledge from both worlds, sports and manufacturing, and to see whether there are similarities, whether there are things that we can use. Because in my personal experience, I constantly reference one or the other and vice versa. And it has given me great success, both in consulting companies and both in working with professional athletes. So a little bit of background, just to get started. Who am I? I am multicultural. I have lived in different locations. I have gotten used to adaptation, change, constant change. And I am competitive as I come from a sports family. So lean is a really nice fit for me. It makes me want to change constantly. It makes me want to compete, to show improvements. It makes me want to adapt to different situations. And lean thinking in sports is something that I don't know, I have never heard being discussed so much as a topic, and it's something I'm passionate about. Because from what I understand from my hobby experience, sports clubs are also organizations, sports teams are also organizations, and they follow very similar rules to companies and to people that we might meet on a daily basis. Lean thinking, how and why? I met lean, or lean met me, or lean found me during 2013, and I have been doing lean ever since that day. I started through a project in the banking sector with the help of McKinsey company, which was around 6 months. And then for the next 8 years or so, I've been doing lean in various industries. As lately, for the past, from 2016, I'm also a consultant. I'm no longer a 9-to-5 type of expert, internal expert. I go and I consult companies, and we do different transformations in the service sector, in the manufacturing sector, in the logistics center, and also educational sectors. And last but not least, I do transformations in the sports department and sports sector. So this is how I got to lean. This is why I'm in lean. I'm a strong believer of lean thinking and of continuous improvement. And I believe that sports goes hand in hand with lean thinking. And the question, can we apply lean thinking in sports? For me, is a definite yes, because just as in corporations, just as in sports clubs, you have goals and you have objectives. They are set at the beginning of a sports season or at the beginning of a macro or micro cycle, which are in terms periods of competition. Both in companies, both in sports, you need to change constantly. You need to rotate. Volleyball is very interesting for those who watch volleyball. I'm sure the people from Brazil are great fans of volleyball. It's very interesting because you have 6 players who constantly rotate, who constantly change, and this creates many different possibilities and solutions in order to win. And in sports, you constantly solve different challenges. Every opponent is a different challenge, and it's very dynamic. So a big difference that I might try to highlight in terms of corporations and sports is that in companies and manufacturing, many times you have the freedom or the time to experiment longer, to have a larger transformation period, whereas in sports, you don't have this time. It's more, how to say, reactive, and you need to also be proactive before the match, but it's very short-timed what you can do and how you can solve problems. Whereas in business, sometimes we're a little bit, how to say, lazy in the long term. In sports, you need to be very, very focused. You need to work very hard, and you get really good discipline. So lean thinking is also about standardization and discipline. In sports, it's the same. And of course, last but not least, we work with people. Lean transformations in companies deal with people. Succeeding with a team or transforming a team means you need to work with people. So these for me are three main topics or three main points that relate lean to sports and that tell us that we can apply lean in sports. Now, my story in sports and why we chose this, it's very interesting. A couple of years ago, I got injured and I decided to end my athletic career. I was doing volleyball for 10 years. Before that, I was riding. I was horse riding and horse jumping. And after that, I decided to enter coaching. Why? Because I love sports, because as consultants, we also need a place to take away the pressure, to take away all the mental stress that we have. And for me, sports is a very nice way of relaxing. And of course, this in terms opened my eyes to a combination of lean thinking and applications in sports, as to me as a coach, but also to the players, that resulted into something very interesting that I don't know, I believe is the first time we probably saw in Bulgaria. I went from a zero level of coaching to becoming an assistant coach in the national team or the men's team in 4 years. So this was a really fast learning curve. And I honestly believe that most of this is due to lean thinking and the proper approach to situational problem solving that I applied. So for me, having a successful career as a coach is hand in hand with understanding lean principles and applying lean principles to sports. Now, in terms of milestones, or how can we become great at what we love, because I love lean transformations and I love coaching. For me, there are three things you need to be aware of, you need to think about. First is being open-minded and ready to learn, unlearn, and relearn. The first day, I remember the first day I went into practice, I felt like I know nothing about volleyball, regardless of the fact that I was playing it for more than 10 years, because it's very different when you need to transfer knowledge and you need to help young athletes to do the things right. And then I also remember the first day that I went into an automotive manufacturing plant, which I had never done up until that point. I was in the services consulting business, and suddenly I went into manufacturing, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I know nothing about lean manufacturing. So in both cases, if you have a proper lean mindset, you know that you can learn, you know that you can face any challenge, you have the instruments, you have the tools. The basic thing is that you need to have the mindset of constant education, constant learning. We need to change. We need to change the way we work. We need to change the way we see things. And of course, one of the great tools is identifying wastes. If you can identify wastes in sports, you can improve your performance. So if you can identify wastes in companies, you can improve their performance. Another milestone or another nugget that you can take away is that listening to customer needs and serving people is a must. As in consulting, that is the same thing in coaching. You need to listen to your athletes or your teammates, and you need to find a way to properly serve them. You need to find a way to help them develop their mental and technical skills. And of course, for me, applying lean thinking helps us dominate opponents. I will show you some examples of things that we can do and things that we can apply. And it's a way of thinking. It's a situational based transformation. And it's something that you need to do on a weekly basis. So every week, what we do as coaches, we have a plan of action. We have some targets, objectives we need to meet, and we have an opponent. And we need to adapt our structure and our team towards the opponent. But not only, we also need to look internally and to see our room for improvement, to see where we are lacking behind, to see what we can standardize and what we can improve. So it's a very dynamic, constant transformation that is happening in sports. Now, some equipment or some tools that we use and that can be related to lean, we use a lot of visual cues. So visual management is something that we use on a constant basis as coaches to help athletes understand where they need to be, how they need to move. So I very often draw lines on the pitch, on the arena, to mark the proper position of my players, and this is very easy for them to move and then to see if they're on the right place. We adapt their approach to the attack. We adapt their approach to the serve. So everything that can help them better understand the game is helpful. So visual cues is one of those things that we use usually in manufacturing. We use a lot of dashboards in manufacturing. We do the same thing in sports. And I've been talking for the past year and a half with some of the top coaches in volleyball through some conferences that we have online. And I see that many of the things they apply are tools and instruments that we find in lean. They just don't know that it's lean. So another thing, we use a lot of statistics. Volleyball is a numbers game, as many other games are. Baseball, basketball. All of us probably are aware of the Moneyball movie. And in volleyball, it's the same. We use a lot of statistics that help us analyze our performance and then also help us analyze our competition. And we use video capture. We use video capture to help people see from a different perspective, to help them open up their minds, to help them also look at best practices. We analyze a lot of top performers to show them this is a good benchmark which you can strive towards based on your physical capacity. So visual management, statistical analysis, and video capture, video analysis is something that we also use in manufacturing. We use a lot of statistical analysis for problem solving, for root cause analysis. And also video capture, something that I found very interesting, especially during the COVID situation. We had clients that were far away from us on a distance from where we are in Sofia, but we managed through video to do Gemba walks. So what we were doing usually during our meetings is having one person with a mobile phone going to the line and capturing the video. So we were looking at operators, we were looking at how they work. We do the same thing in volleyball. We go with a mobile phone, we capture, or if we are not on location. We have a camera inside the arena, and we can monitor how people are moving, how they're developing. Tools. Data Volley is a very interesting tool. I will show you some examples. We have a specialized software that helps us analyze players and helps us combine code with video. And this again is something that helps us, but this is for the very top level. If you're working with younger teams, younger players, what you really need is pen and paper, you need sticky notes, and you need a little template in which to track your record. So you can have a small template for some basic statistics that give you more than enough information and help you win matches. We use whiteboards. We use whiteboards to gather with the team, to discuss our strategy, to discuss the mental side of the game, and of course, to plan our actions. So I would say we also do shop floor meetings. Before every practice, we gather in the gym, in the center of the arena, and we do a small shop floor to discuss our daily plan, our objectives, to see how everyone is, to see if we have some injuries, to see if we have specialized work we need to do. We use a lot of PDCA in volleyball. Again, on a weekly basis, we have to develop a plan. We have to practice for this plan. And then when it comes to the actual match, we have to check whether our plan is working. And if it's working, we need to standardize our game plan for the upcoming games and the upcoming opponents. We use a lot of feedback on a constant basis. So feedback is something that a coach has to do constantly. And of course, we use dashboards that can be physical or digital. So some examples just to show you. Here are some examples from top level coaching and analysis. We have, for example, before every match, we have a statistical analysis of some players like the setter who is distributing the workload. If we might say, or make an analogy, there is a workload that needs to be balanced in volleyball. And if it's disbalanced, usually the team suffers. So on the left, you will see some statistics that show us as a coach how a setter is distributing the workload of his team. And this is just one page that you see. It's a general one, but we also have around 22 pages like this for various situations and various processes that are happening. And this gives a coach a lot of information on how to plan his game. We also have, on the right side, you might see some examples of visual management that we use in visual feedback we have for our players to show them where the opponent is spiking. And each of our players knows how to read this, and this is his short manual for the match. So we have a standardized template, a standardized match template that each one follows, and then there are some specific things that everyone needs to know. During a match, what we can do is we have a statistician and he's giving information to the coach. This is live feedback. And there is somebody on the bench that is constantly proposing solutions because, as I said, we plan for an opponent, but usually the opponent is also planning to play against us. And it's a very interesting strategic game that we play as coaches. And we try to see if our predictions come true or not. So we usually make some hypothesis before a match, and then we see whether this hypothesis is actually true or false, and we need to constantly adapt to this. And sometimes these hypotheses might be correct for 2 to 3 games, and then suddenly the opponent changes because they're looking for a way to beat us. And then, as you can see, we also have a graphical analysis. We can see we usually read a lot of data regarding efficiency and effectiveness of our players in different skills. And we can see over a period of time if there are some peaks in their performance. And another thing that we have implemented, and it's very interesting, is player analysis and creating something like a skill matrix for our players, and also a feedback survey, which we use at the end of a season, where everyone does a 360 analysis of himself. And then we gather the results as a coaching staff, and then we see what players are performing well and what players are not performing well based on a general analysis of all the team and all the staff. And it's very interesting. This is something that we did in the first year of implementing Lean. And after that, we sat down and we had some subjective reasons to part with some of the players. But we said we want something more objective, because we have the feeling that these are not the players for us. But how can we measure this, and how can we then explain our reasoning? So we made a survey and we got the results. And as you can imagine, our subjective reasoning was very close to the objective results. And here you see 4 players in red. They have a lot of red on their scoreboards. And these were actually the 4 players that were low performers and that didn't want to be part of this transformational journey. So we had to part with them, but it was a very objective decision. It wasn't something that you felt guilty about doing after that. And the results for the team were great. We started constantly working harder, and of course the performance was much better. So there are procedures in volleyball, and as we know, the transformational model we follow, I said again, we have situational approach on a weekly basis. We have to do process improvement. We need to constantly improve our practice scheme. We need to constantly develop the capacities of our players. We need to manage all of this as coaches and as leaders. And of course, we need to work on the basic thinking of our players. There is a lot of psychology in sport, and sometimes you lose a match because of psychology. There's a lot of mindset, and there are a lot of assumptions that we need to do. So tackling with these fundamentals, thinking, mindset, and assumptions is something we do on a daily basis in practice. And as I've said here, sports is Kanai. Kanai is a continuous and never-ending improvement cycle. Because what we do is we practice, and then we compete, and then we practice, and then we compete. And this happens for a whole year. Then we have a little bit of rest, and then we do the same thing over and over again. So practice has goals. We use standardized methods of work. We search to constantly remove waste in our practice and in our movements, because volleyball nowadays is a very high-paced and very high-speed sport. So the faster we are, the better we are. And this means removing any motion, any unnecessary motion, and any unnecessary communication between players. They need to be very focused. And of course, we try to error-proof our players. We try to put them in situations where they are already aware of what will happen and they can adapt. In competition, it's similar. You have a goal, and the goal is not only to win, it's to win in a specific way. It's to learn some new specific skills. So you need to constantly coach the players. You need to constantly analyze and look for small rooms for improvement. As I showed you some of the screens, usually the player with a little bit of better statistics in attack wins, the player with less error wins. And of course, we need to constantly do corrective actions. We need to make corrective actions. We need to do video analysis. So it's a constant, never-ending cycle. Now, some short lean tools. For me, it's a constant PDCA, but also in order to assess what we do, as I mentioned, we do video analysis. We look at the operators who are our players. We do Ishikawa. We try to identify the reasons for some of the results. We need to see which factors might apply to us. We need to see what in the environment or the process or the skills is helping us or not helping us win. And we also always use the 5 whys method. We try to find the root cause, because not everything is as objective or as simple as we might think in volleyball. In terms of performance, as I said, we do shop floor meetings. We also do short strategic meetings before a match. We also do them after a match. So we have a kick-in and a kick-out meeting. We do a lot of benchmarking to see where we need to go. We have some specific statistics. So for example, in terms of a serve, there are 2 basic serves, a float and a jump. In the float serve, we want no more than 10% error. In the jump, we can go up to 25% error rate. And this is something we need to constantly be thinking about. And of course, we do waste analysis, as I mentioned. And some final notes before I see we have some questions and some comments. We are dealt with some talents in volleyball. We sometimes think of sports in terms of SIPOC. We get supplied as coaches with talents and different levels of players. We then need to put them through a process. We need to create and manage this process to create the change and the growth that is needed for them, because usually a team develops its skills and over a season, and then we try to be performing just at the right time. You win, you lose, sometimes you learn, and mostly we try to learn. We do a lot of experimentation, sometimes with the risk of losing a match, but winning the championship. And the final thought for me, and why I think lean is applicable in sports and vice versa, is that we change lives through identifying hidden potential. So something I forgot to mention in my previous talk, and I will mention here, is that if you believe in your players, if you believe in your operators, in the management, in the companies you work with, then you will find the potential and you will find a way to make them win. If you don't believe in them, they will prove that they cannot win. So for me, this was always something that I use in companies as well. I look for hidden potential. I try to believe in people. Many times they have problems with believing in themselves and the fact that a small change can make a big difference. So we need to believe for them, and we need to find the proper lean approaches, lean tools, lean methodologies to show them how to do this. So yeah, I think that's lean in sports in a nutshell, Vasco.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Really interesting. We do have one comment and one question. Maybe on the comment, I think it's important to elaborate a little bit more to avoid confusion, right? So the comment is, I just don't agree with the domination part. For me, lean is about cooperation and not domination. So your thoughts?
Great comment. Great comment. Yes. When I was talking about domination, my thoughts were about dominating on the field, so performing in the best manner that you can. And I do agree with Andre that lean is about cooperation. And this is something that I would mention if I was talking in terms of collaborating with coaches and collaborating with other clubs. And it's something that we see a lot in Bulgaria that is missing, the collaboration and the sharing of knowledge that will help on a national level. Because as I said, I'm doing national level coaching and also club level. And on the club level, we don't cooperate enough to help the national level. So I agree with Andre that lean is about cooperation. But in terms of domination, what my comment is that you need to raise your standards as a team, and you need to want to dominate your field. So you must want to be the best lean consultant. You must want to have the best results for your customers. Of course, you don't do it every time, but that's the mindset that I usually work with. Not to compete, because for me, competing and dominating is a little bit different. Not just to be in the sport, but to be the best in the sport.
That's a high-level sport person talking. We can sense this. And one last question, maybe very quickly because we are right on time.
Yeah.
Does the process work the other way around? So, meaning, did you bring any good practices from volleyball into lean practice?
Yes, I constantly bring examples of how we manage the sports process into companies, and I find that this is very interesting to people, and they can relate to some of our lean tools much easier when we break it down through sports. So they relate bothly, and that's why I really find this fascinating as a concept to combine business and sports and to put lean inside of all of this. So yeah, what I do with my athletes, I then try to find ways to apply in the business. The visual management that I do, I started doing visual management first in sports, and then I started doing video shooting and video analysis in lean manufacturing companies. So yeah, it's vice versa, and that's why we chose to have such a topic, to make people think that we can find inspiration from the things we do in our part-time and apply it to what we do in lean.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure listening to that topic, and I hope it was very interesting also for the audience here today. Wish you all a great day, night, afternoon, morning, and enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you, Mikola. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.